sorting tape. Okay, today's agenda. Hopefully you have a decision in your head. Today's agenda, you'll notice that I'm being videotaped in the back. This is for the Handong Educational Support Office. And they like to videotape teachers, and then what they'll do is they'll send it to me, and I have to watch it and critique myself. It's awkward, yeah. But I learn a lot from what I see on video. So she's not videotaping you, so don't worry. We'll start with prayer, we'll vote about moving the test or not, and we'll briefly look at sleep and consciousness. This particular chapter is quite good, but I will not test you on this chapter. Given the post-earthquake drama, I'm not going to test you on the textbook, but if you have questions from lecture today, it's a really good chapter. And then we'll spend a little bit of time seeing if you have questions in preparation for the final exam, and we'll do a brief post-test. Remember, you did one on the first day of the semester, and pre-test. Many of you failed terribly because you didn't know Neuropsych yet. And so I want to look at how well you do today, and then you can compare the two. I'm not grading them, and I'm not keeping them. It's for your own benefit, so you can say, look, I learned things. So that's what that's about. All right, so let me begin with prayer, and then we'll look at final exam. God, good morning. Thank you for bringing us together on our last day of the semester together. Thank you for the chance we've had to learn more about you and your careful attention to detail and all the wonders that you have built into our brains. So we don't have to think about all the different things that our bodies can do. We don't have to think about how we are learning or when we should sleep or how to digest our food. It just happens outside our consciousness. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for giving us brains that are big enough to be able to learn about our own brains and for being able to do it in this community. Be with those who are under great stress, who are suffering still from the earthquake or other issues in their lives. We pray that you give them protection and great strength as we manage the very end of the semester. In Jesus' name, amen. Final exam. Let me ask first, most of you have seen your grades, I think. You posted your grades. A few of you sent me some errors that we fixed. No. How many of you, if you had to decide today, are going to take the final exam? You're going to come and take it. How many? Okay, about a third to half. Okay, you're the only people who get to vote. Because if you're not going to take the exam, you don't get to vote on whether we're moving it or not. So if you're taking the exam, or you're thinking about taking the exam, how many of you would like to move it to Friday the 15th? Raise your hand. And how many of you, if you're taking the exam, would like to keep it on the 12th? Well, that was not clear at all. Would it, well, I have an honor code issue, but I am willing to come both times and give the test. But if you take it on the 12th, you don't get to tell other people what was on it. Can we agree to that? So if I come both days, you can choose which day you come, but you don't get to talk about the test. Are we good with that? Everyone's nodding? Okay. All right, let's do that. You can choose which day you come. So it looks like there's about 7 to 10 of you who'd like to come on Tuesday, and there's about 10 to 15 of you who prefer Friday. I'll be here both times. So you choose. But you have to come to one of them if you're taking the final. Okay, questions about that? It got complicated here at the end with, do I take the final, do I not take the final? Any questions? All right, let's look then at sleep and consciousness. Oh, isn't that nice? That is such a lie, because babies don't really sleep like this for very long. Like it's 10 minutes at a time. And then they wake up. They're so cute when they're asleep. My favorite poem, I'm not good at poetry, but my favorite poem in all of English literature is by Robert Frost, and it's very short. He says, "There is no child so beautiful that his his mother does not love him best when he's asleep. Every child is very beautiful to a mother, but she does love them best when they're sleeping, because she's so tired. So sleep and consciousness, why is it part of the psychology class? I mean, it's neuropsych, so we have brain and we have body, but what does psychology have to do with it? And is it part of our normal rhythm, or is it just because we're lazy, because we can't get the willpower to stay awake, to study? Why are we sleeping? And it's interesting to note that sleep is all over the Bible. It's everywhere. I did a search for it last night and I'd forgotten. It's in many of the books of the Bible. Somewhere mentions sleep. Do not sleep or you will grow poor. Stay awake, you will have food to spare. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. And then another similar psalm. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. They will sleep forever and not awake. So sleep is mentioned, but it seems to have different meanings, similar to how we use it in our own language. So we've got regular sleep. Jacob fell asleep, and then he had to wrestle with the angel, remember? Samson fell asleep, and Delilah cut his hair. Jesus fell asleep on the boat during a big storm, and they had to go wake him up. So we have a lot of regular sleep shown throughout Scripture. But sometimes sleep is used to describe anesthesia, like a very deep sleep. Like God put Adam into a very deep sleep and then created Eve as part of the Genesis story. Sometimes sleep is meant to refer to sex. So Abraham slept with Hagar. You're like, really? She got pregnant. So it was about sex. It wasn't just about sleeping. Lot's daughters said, let us lay with our father. Because remember, their whole town had been destroyed, Sodom and Gomorrah. So they had sex with their dad in the cave up above Sodom, where it had been destroyed. So that had to do with sex. Sometimes the Bible refers to sleep as laziness. And here you see that. Do not love sleep or you will grow poor. Being lazy and sitting around and not doing your work. And sometimes sleep means death. You see it referred to in the book of Job. You see it in the Corinthians reference here. And we look at Lazarus. Mary and Martha had said, Lazarus is dead! And Jesus like, nah, he's sleeping. And they're like, no, he stinks, he's really dead. No, he's sleeping, I'll be there in a couple days. Like, I think he was dead. So we see sleep is a normal part of the human condition. We know that God rested after creation. We don't know if he slept in the way that you and I do. But we know that sleep is part of our created nature. And it's such a common experience that we use it to mean lots of different things. We use it as an analogy for anesthesia, laziness, death, and sex. So sleep is a normal part of how we're created to be. But what is it? I mean, we're so used to it that it seems normal. But imagine if at, around 7 p.m. every night, all of your pens and all of the markers and all the pencils started standing up on their own. You'd be like, what is happening? They didn't do it all at once, it was just like gradually. They would all, around 7 o'clock, they'd all be standing. And then they'd just stay that way for 6 or 8 hours. That's what we do. Imagine an alien coming and they're like, look at these humans. Around 11 p.m. or 12 or so, they all just start laying down. And they don't move for many hours. And then they get up and pretend nothing happened. That's weird. Why do we do this? It feels unproductive. It feels like a waste of time. So what is this sleep? It's a natural part of how we're created to be. We are created to sleep. It's part of our self-care. And it's a daily shift in consciousness. We talked last time about impaired consciousness, coma, vegetative state, minimally conscious state. Those are impaired consciousness. Those are problems. But this is normal. We shift in and out of different levels of consciousness. But we also shift in levels of sensation and perception. Our awareness of the world, our information that we're receiving about the environment changes. And it's a shift in movement. We pretty much stop moving. We like to lay down. We can sleep sitting up, but not very well. But we like to lay down, and we don't move a whole lot for the next 6 to 8 hours. And we don't know why we sleep. but the best research says we think we have to, or we die. And it appears with animal studies and with human studies, we can go maybe 3 days without sleep before we start getting really, really sick. And many lab animals will die if they're deprived of sleep for more than 2 or 3 days. So it seems to be required for our physical health and our mental health. And we'll look at that a little bit more. So this natural daily shift in consciousness is part of a bigger cycle that we're part of, called the circadian rhythm. Circadian is a very nice Latin piece. Circa means around or approximately, and dian means day. So about a day. I love that. Somebody put a word together like that. The circadian rhythm is our natural 24-hour cycle of consciousness. We get higher levels of awareness and lower levels. It includes body temperature. So I know when I need to go to bed when my toes get really cold, because I'm like, oh, body temperature just dropped, I gotta get in bed, because I'm really tired. That's my first clue at night, that I'm really tired. Digestion. Digestion is greater at some points of the day and almost nothing at nighttime. So part of this 24-hour cycle that our whole body is part of includes sleep. And that's the change in consciousness. How do we regulate the timing of that? I mean, why is it we're all on pretty much the same schedule? Is it a cultural agreement? Did our government say, all right, at 8 a.m. you must wake up, and at midnight you must go to sleep? No, we just do it naturally. But how is that timing regulated? And the timing is regulated by a little part of the brain with a fancy name. Here's your dinner time word, in case you need to impress people again tonight. The suprachiasmatic nucleus. And it looks big, but if you look at supra, it just means above. Like we talked about superior and inferior. This is the same idea. Supra means above. Chiasm means a crossing. The suprachiasmatic nucleus means above the crossing. And I'll show you in a minute what that is. And it's part of the hypothalamus. So here you see, could you turn down our, I think it's light number 2. Yeah. So here the eyes are over here, of course. Here's the cerebellum. Here we've got the corpus callosum. Thalamus is in here. And the very tip of this, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, is right in here. And it's above where the optic nerves cross. You have nerves going from the back of each eye, and then they cross each other before going to the occipital lobe. And the suprachiasmatic nucleus is right above where they cross. So if you are dissecting a brain, it's very easy to find this part of the hypothalamus, because it's right above where the optic nerves cross. And that's called the optic chiasm right there. So we've got hypothalamus is above the pituitary. The bottom part of the hypothalamus is above this optic chiasm, where the 2 optic nerves from the eyes cross over. And that little piece of the brain manages the timing of all this. It's like the conductor. It says, all right, we need to wake up now, so increased arousal, increased wakefulness and awareness, increased ghrelin levels because we're going to need to eat breakfast. We need to increase body temperature. We need to increase glucose release because we're going to need muscles. Ta-da! It's like a conductor. And then near the end of the day, the conductor's like, all right, we're winding down now. Slow down the digestion. Slow down bowel movements. Urination is shutting down. Immune system is revving up. Consciousness is going down. The timing, the conductor, is this suprachiasmatic nucleus. It's part of the hypothalamus. But, okay, we can accept that. But what strikes me is how does the brain coordinate timing with the earth? You say, wait a minute. Our circadian rhythm is about a day. Our rhythm, as a human, is about 24 hours. But so is the orbit of the Earth. The rotation of the Earth is also 24 hours. Coincidence? I don't know. Probably not. It's amazing that our circadian rhythm matches the turning of the Earth. The Earth is huge. You don't have a direct way to communicate with the Earth. How does this happen? The easy answer is that's how God made it. And yes, that's absolutely true. But how does it work? What's the mechanism of it? And it ends up that we can readjust. You know, if you've stayed up all night, my daughter was up till 5:30 the other morning doing some assignment she forgot about. How do we readjust? After a couple days, we're back to our natural rhythm again. The Earth doesn't tell us how to do it. We're not getting alien messages from outer space that resynchronize us. How do we readjust? How does your body know what the Earth is doing? How do we stay connected? So here is your super basic cycle. The sun comes up. Your eyes are closed when you're sleeping, but they're transparent. The light can come through your eyelids, and that's done for a reason. The light comes through your eyelids, hits the back of your eye. Your eye then, this is the basic version, we'll get into more detail. The eye then tells the hypothalamus, hey, we got light. There's light coming through the eyelids. And the hypothalamus sends a message to the pineal gland, and this is part of the endocrine system. So it's a gland similar to the pituitary gland. And remember, the hypothalamus is the boss of all the endocrine. The hypothalamus sends a message to the pineal gland, and it says, stop working. That's how we coordinate. When the sun comes up, there's a certain frequency of light wave that triggers this process. And when the sun is going down, that twilight or near sunset, that certain wavelength, again triggers the brain to say, pineal gland, wake up. So let's look at the more complicated version. We call it the retinohypothalamic tract. Retina is the back of the eye. It's got sensors in the back of the eye for light and for color. You may remember rods and cones. Hypothalamus, we have met many times this semester. And there is a direct path. Before the eye communicates with the thalamus or the occipital lobe, it's already sent information to the hypothalamus. So the sun comes up, and that particular frequency of light waves goes through our eyelids, which is very handy. And it travels to the hypothalamus, and it triggers the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So we've got the retina at this end. Some neurons are sensitive to the light, sort of like pain neurons are sensitive to pain, like cutting or mechanical or chemical pressure. Some of the neurons in the back of our eye, in the retina, are sensitive to light because they contain this chemical, melanopsin. So some of these dendrites contain melanopsin, which is a light-sensitive chemical. And so as soon as light hits that chemical, the retina sends a message to the hypothalamus. Specifically, our suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that is our conductor for the circadian rhythm. So the endocrine gland, we mentioned earlier, the pineal gland, is right in between the two halves of the thalamus, produces melatonin. Melatonin makes us sleepy. So if you are traveling on a plane, and if you are like flying to the US, and you have a long ways to go, lots of time zones you have to cross, many people will take melatonin so that they can sleep on the plane. And it helps reduce jet lag. Your brain produces melatonin, and it makes you sleepy. But when the sun is coming up, that light triggers the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which tells the pineal gland, stop producing melatonin. We need to wake up now. So it inhibits the pineal gland's production of melatonin, so we feel more awake. Melatonin is shut down. But at nighttime, the process is reversed. And so then we have melatonin starts to be produced as the sun goes down. And in modern culture, of course, we have electricity. We have lights. We can trick our brains and stay up later. And we don't feel sleepy as soon. Back before we had electricity and smartphones and all these cool things, we would fall asleep as the sun went down, or quite soon after. And we would wake up as the sun came up, because that's how our brains were designed, is to be sensitive to those light waves. And as the sun comes up, we shut down melatonin production, and as the sun goes down, melatonin production starts again. So that's how we are coordinated with the Earth's rotation. The way that the Earth rotates and is exposed to the sun is connected to how our brain is sensitive to light, is connected to our sleep cycles. I think that's really cool how that works. When we are sleeping itself, there are different rhythms going on within our sleep. So it's not just you're asleep and you're awake. There's rhythms going on within our sleep. So let's take a look at these sleep stages. You may remember these from introductory psychology. This is figure 15.5 from your text, if you want to see that in more detail. So we have 4 main sleep stages, plus a strange, so these are called non-REM sleep stages. We have REM sleep. And then there are different brain waves, different patterns of electrical activity in your brain for each of these stages. So when you're awake, like now, here's what your brain waves will look like on an EEG, electroencephalogram. They're fairly fast, rapid frequency, low voltage. Those are called beta waves. As you get sleepy, as your day goes on today and you are more and more tired, you may fall into daydreaming or dozing at your desk. And now the brain waves change. They're a little bit slower alpha waves. This is where you have sort of daydreaming, where you feel like, oh, you're falling and you'll jolt yourself awake. This strange sort of sleep, but not quite sleep. Once you fall asleep, we have what's called theta waves. Different frequency, different patterns. As you fall more deeply asleep, you see these sleep spindles. It's like the brain is going along and then it just goes, and then it just goes along. And it's not clear why that happens. They're called the sleep spindles. And sometimes you'll have this big jump, which somebody called the K complex, I don't know why. So you're still pretty easy to wake up in these 2 levels. But as we sleep more, as we get to stage 3 and stage 4, we have a lot of slow waves. It's hard to wake people up like this because we have low awareness arousal and low alertness. It's getting closer and closer to the level of a coma. And this is a normal part of every day. We enter almost a coma state. And it's very hard to wake people up. So we go from awake, drowsy, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. They're often just put together. And then we come back up to stage 2, stage 1, and then we jump to REM sleep. REM is short for rapid eye movement. And if you've ever watched someone sleep, or watched your dog or cat sleep, you can see their eyes rolling around behind their eyelids. And it's weird. And nobody knows exactly why the eyes are rolling around. And this is where we tend to have a lot of dreams. And you'll notice the waves look a lot like you're awake. They look very similar, but you're not awake. You're hard to wake up, but your brain is extremely active. And depending on how you measure it, the brain is more awake in REM sleep than when you're awake and conscious. So the brain is extremely active in REM sleep. And then from REM sleep, you go back down to stage 2, stage 3 and 4, and you have a rhythm throughout the night. So that you're going through these different stages of consciousness normally throughout the night. And you're generally unaware of it unless you remember your dreams. So you remember this from last time. We looked at content of consciousness, how aware are you of yourself or your environment, level of consciousness, how awake or arousal level, how alert are you. And we saw that it could range from the abnormal level of coma, general anesthesia, and the normal wakefulness is up there. But you see deep sleep overlaps a bit with this comatose. Very hard to wake you up. You are totally unaware of your environment. Your alarm might be beeping, you don't hear it. Your baby's crying, you don't hear it. Lighter sleep, stages 1 and 2 are up in here. You can be woken up. You do hear things more. You can be woken up. And then REM sleep is weird because it's hard to wake you up, low level of wakefulness, but your brain is very active. It is processing processing lots of stuff from your day. It might be incorporating sounds from your environment into your dreams. And then lucid dreaming, not everybody has this. Lucid dreaming is when you're aware you're dreaming and you change your dream. So I used to have a lot of dreams where some mystery bad guy was chasing me and I couldn't run. And I was like stuck and I would pull myself along through the grass or wherever I was running. This horrible dream of being trapped. And at one point, I took a self-defense class. And they vaguely mentioned dreams, and I felt tough after this class. I could beat anybody, I thought. I really can. And since then, in my dreams now, when the bad guy's chasing me, I turn around and I yell at him and I chase him away. It's awesome! So it doesn't happen often. But lucid dreaming is when you're aware that you are dreaming, and you're like, this is a dream, I'll chase him. And you can change the direction of your dream. Some people are quite good at it and have it come very easily. Others of us, we can learn how to do it, if you're ever interested in that. So these light blue ones are normal, everyday levels of consciousness that we all have. In a 24-hour period, we experience deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep, and that's a normal part of changing consciousness. Interestingly, those different stages don't get equal time throughout the night. So this is another figure from your book. Okay, let's say you are falling asleep now. You're going to start awake. And down to stage 1, and stage 2, and then some time in stage 3, not much in stage 4, and now you're way down here, bottom of stage 4, and then you sort of rise in consciousness, and then you may go back down, and then you rise in consciousness. And this is after about an hour and a half, after about 90 minutes, you'll have your first REM sleep, your first dreams. Now let me pause there. We also have dreams at these other stages, but they're not very interesting. These are the ones where you wake up and you're like, house, trees, it's all very vague. The REM sleep dreams are the ones where you're like, I was at my mother's house, but it wasn't really her house, and then my dad was there, but it wasn't really my dad, and it was this, and you have all these details. That's the REM sleep dreaming. We still have thoughts and sort of dreams throughout the rest of the night, but they're not very exciting. They're not very good. So after about 90 minutes, we have REM sleep, and then we spend a lot of time back down here in deep sleep, and we have more REM sleep, less time in deep sleep, more REM sleep, less time in deep sleep. So as the night goes on, you start with lots of deep sleep. And after about 3 to 4 hours, you have less and less deep sleep and more dreaming, more REM sleep. Is there a big difference? And the answer is, yeah, they're both important. So why do we sleep? And why are these changes so important? Evolutionary perspective on why are we sleeping? Why are we having these odd cycles where we're non-productive for so many hours every day? One theory from the evolutionary view says, well, we rely a lot on our eyes. When it's dark, we can't see, which means we can't find food. And it means we could be in danger from the lions or the bears or the tigers that are trying to eat us. So being asleep, we hide away in a little dark place, somewhere away from danger. We can't get food anyway, so what else is there to do? And so we sleep. And your text talks about how animals that are very big can't hide, and so they sleep very little. Or some animals that need a lot of food sleep very little. They'll take very short little naps all through the day. The humans generally tend to sleep at night when it's dark and sleep for a long period. So that's an evolutionary view of why we sleep. There's also a restorative theory. Why do we sleep? Because that's when our body heals itself. Excuse me. All of the tiny muscle tears, all of the little paper cuts you've gotten in a day, all of the waste products that your body needs to process through the lymphatic system, all of this healing and growth, especially when you're a baby and a teenager, are when you need the most sleep. And old people need less sleep. It happens when you're sleeping. Growth hormone is released when you're asleep. So that's when babies grow. That's when teenagers grow. And it helps heal your body. This happens during deep sleep. The restorative function is during stages 3 and 4, during the deep sleep. So that first few hours of sleep you get heals your body. And it's believed that the next few hours you get, the REM sleep, have to do with your mind, restoring your mind, your psychological function, which is finally why we're discussing this in a psychology class. Getting enough REM sleep helps your moods become more stable. It enhances memory. Remember, that's when memory consolidation happens, is when you're sleeping. The movement of memory from the hippocampus into the cortex happens during REM sleep. And it's believed to be one theory of dreaming. Why are we dreaming? Because it reflects the consolidation of memories into our cortex. It enhances creativity. We are better at problem solving. We are better at analyzing if we've had enough REM sleep. So if you are a university student and you are only getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep each night, your body is healing, you've got an immune function, but psychological functioning is decreased. So you are less able to remember things, mood is less stable, you're going to make some bad decisions, prefrontal cortex is particularly affected. So having 7 to 8 hours of sleep enhances both your physical functioning and your psychological functioning. Okay, last comment on sleep. I mentioned it a couple of times. People have different sleep needs throughout the lifespan. So take a look at the graphs. I have a graph for children, a graph for young adults, people your age, and a graph for elderly. Take a look at them and describe the sleep patterns for each group. Talk to somebody around you, wake up a little bit, and then compare and contrast them. Who gets the most deep sleep? Who gets the most REM sleep? How does the cycle change throughout the night? So take a minute and look through those graphs. What are the sleep patterns for children, young adults, elderly, and then compare them. Who's getting the most deep sleep, who's getting the most REM sleep, etc. Okay, what do you notice? What are the patterns you notice for children? What's happening during the first half of their night? children, first few hours of the night, you're spending mostly in what stage of sleep? Deep sleep, stages 3 and 4. Okay? And then as the night goes on, as we look at hours, say 5 to 8, you're spending more time in what stage? REM sleep. So more of the dreaming stage. We compare that then to young adults. Young adults, you see less deep sleep than you do for little kids. Partly because young adults are done growing. You don't have the growth hormone that's being released, and you don't have to require it then for growth. And then you're spending lots more time in REM sleep than what the babies are doing. So this is you. But if you are only getting 4 hours of sleep a night, you're not getting enough REM sleep, which could explain why you are irritable and grouchy with friends, and you just turn to your cell phone instead of talking to other people, and you can't really remember stuff. You go over your studies and you go over your notes, and it just doesn't stick. You can't remember because you're not getting enough sleep. And I know it seems weird to say, I really have to study, I'll go to bed. But it will help your brain so you can remember better. And then we compare it to elderly people. They're getting hardly any deep sleep anymore. Old people don't sleep real deeply. And they have a lot of times where they're awake. See that? So they're waking up. They're doing REM sleep, and then they wake up. Do a REM sleep, maybe go down to stage 2, and then wake up. They wake up a lot. They don't sleep very well. And it's not known why that is. Does that mean that they are aging because they don't have deep sleep? Or is that, we don't really know why that pattern changes over time. So taking a look at normal sleep, those normal patterns, we just assume, oh, sleep, it's annoying. Or sleep, I love it. But why do we do it? And I wanted you to have some idea of why we do it and how it interacts with our body's health and with our mental health, with our psychological health. Any questions on sleep? Now you're all thinking about, how many hours till I can take a nap?
I think that some people can fall asleep quicker than others.
There's different theories for that. I can fall asleep really fast. Like if I'm awake for more than a minute, it feels like forever.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I can fall asleep in
I can fall asleep.
10 seconds.
Yeah. My husband, it takes him like 20 minutes. And I'm like, would you just stop moving? I'm sleeping over here. I don't know. One theory says that people who fall asleep quickly are sleep deprived, that they're sort of behind on their sleep. But I'm not sure that's true. Because even when I sleep a lot, I can still fall asleep really fast.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I don't know. It may be a personality difference. I'm not sure. Other questions? All right, last thing for today, in terms of brain stuff. The very first day of the semester, you were not all here yet, but you took a test. And it looked like this. Do you remember? Do you remember that feeling you had of, oh no? See if in your mind you could answer these. How would you label these structures? So 1 through 10. So go through in your mind, what are the names of those? This little hint, the eyeballs will be right here. You want more time, or should I go to the next slide? It's like many of you are still writing. And then we'll go to the next slide about labeling a neuron. Let's look at the next one. So this was the first slide I gave you on our first day of the semester. Had you label those. And then I had you label these structures. Oh, it's odd, the numbers didn't come out. That's weird. Oh, because they're in white and it looks like they got dragged down. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go across. And then this one, number 17, is referring to the process that happens along this structure. What do we call that process? When you filled in as much as you can remember, come on up to the front and get your pretests. I kept them from your first day. So again, if you're an older student, your numbers are up here. Your pretest is up in this pile. Come on, you can get it. And see how you did the first day compared to now. Again, the 213s up to the 217s. So come and get your quiz after you do this one. How did you do on day one? Some of you did very well on day one. You had it all filled in, only it was all in Korean. You couldn't remember the English words. I've never learned the English words. I'm not assuming you would get them all perfectly right today, but I'm guessing you're pretty close. That you knew a lot of these structures. So what is number one? What do we call this? Frontal lobe, yep, prefrontal cortex, if we was pointing more over here. Number two, precentral gyrus, or motor cortex. And number three, what's the line between them? Ooh, very nice, all right, central sulcus. Four? Good. Somatosensory or post-central gyrus. Number 5, parietal lobe. And number 6, occipital. Number 7, good. Temporal. 8, cerebellum is important for what? Memory and movement. That's what the cerebellum is involved in. And that contains 70% of your brain's neurons. We don't really know much about it because it's not all that interesting for psychology, but there's a lot of neurons in there. All right, number 10. Well, it's not a great drawing. It's supposed to be spinal cord. And then number 9 would be brainstem, the pons medulla. And just for fun, what do we call this line? Lateral fissure. Nice. Also got over the next one. What are these little pointy things? Dendrites. What type of neuron is this? Motor or sensory? It's a motor neuron. Sensory neurons we looked at only in the pain chapter. They tend to be unipolar. They've just got the cell, and then you've got this long axon thing that comes out with sensitive ends for nociception. All right, so that's the dendrite. What's this? The general round yellow blob? Cell body or soma. What's the purple thing in the middle? Nucleus. What does that contain? Genes, DNA. Good. What do we call this little yellow extension? Axon hillock. And what does that get to decide? Whether to fire or not. Yes, good. And then we have these white bumpy things. Myelin. What makes the myelin? Oh yes, you go. It's a type of glial cell called the oligodendrocyte. Very nice. Okay. Do you remember what the spaces between the myelin are called? Nice. Nodes of Ranvier, the French guy. What's the name of the process that we have along this axon? Action potential. Or if it's jumping from between, if it's jumping from node to node, what do we call that? It starts with S. Saltatory conduction. Saltar is from the Latin to jump. And so it jumps. Ooh, review. Okay. And then we have, what's at the very end of this axon? No, but right before the very end, a little bump. At the end of the axon, we have a little bump in which we store the neurotransmitters. Ooh, close. The vesicles are in it. Axon terminals. Yes, very nice. Okay, we have axon terminals, and those have the vesicles, and that's where we store our neurotransmitters, and we release them into the space which we call the synapse. Very nice. And then those, then we have receptors. Then on the next neuron, the postsynaptic neuron. I think you've learned a lot this semester. I have been very pleased with your progress and your questions. So I am done delivering lecture, done delivering content. Do you have questions about the final exam? Happy to entertain those now. Or you can use the Kakao chat rooms. I think those are still set up. Or you can email me questions. But do you have any questions at this point about anything from the final? Well then, have a great Christmas. I won't see the rest of you. Some of you I won't see. Some of you I'll see on Tuesday, and some I will see on Friday. So, all right, blessings to you. Have a great end of the semester.